time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Spot Shooters Archery,
Easy Cut,
Packer Max,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Scent Lock,
Scent Blocker,
Limb Walker Game Calls,
Buck Baits,
Gut Check,
Stanislawski Release Aids,
Copper John,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Sense Vapor Hunting Products,
and Rebel 6 Rubs. And don't forget, you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on goodtalkradio.com.
Welcome back to the Up North Journal, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in the cabin tonight with Dan DeFaw. We had a couple weeks off here. We actually missed one show, and we're back in the house right before Christmas, staring down the throat of ATA 2020. You ready? You ready for that trip?
Yes.
I am too, actually. I'm looking forward to it. That's always a good time. It's a grind. It's a long grind, but yeah, it's a good time.
We got Adam Wynn on here that's asking us, do we ice fish?
When we get ice, we do.
When we get ice, we do.
You know, we had, let's get a little sidetrack here right before we get going. But yes, I started thinking about ice fishing. I was actually going to take my grandson for his first ice fishing trip. And today I'm wearing, you can't see it right now, but I got shorts on because it's like 50 degrees here in Michigan. And earlier this week, up north, about 3 hours from here, it was -9 wind chill. So
Right?
what ice we got now, a little bit we had started is now gone. So
Exactly.
But and Mark Allen says, love the Pigeon River hat. Yep, that's my guide's hat. So I got when I was up there. Jennifer Drake's in the house. Hey, Jen, thank you once again for all the help and all the tips and tactics you give us, man. It was monumental in getting us to where we needed to be. So, but without further ado, let's get rocking here real quick. Danny, go ahead.
And real quick, Adam, wherever we can find ice.
Yeah, where we find ice, that's where we go.
Saginaw Bay,
River, local lakes.
Yeah.
So,
all right, let's do it.
All right, so go ahead and tell the good people about the people that support us and the things that they can get a discount on, Danny.
Absolutely. You know, if there's one thing you're going to do is you notice we're drinking our Hunter's Blend tonight, as we have been throughout the year. And if you want a discount, why don't you go on over to Hunter's Blend right here.
HuntersBlend.com.
HuntersBlendCoffee.com. And upon checkout, you can use the code capital UNJ and get 10% off your order. So you could do that. That would help out our supporters. And if that's not all, got buck baits. Used the elk lure last week.
Absolutely.
And if you go over to buckbaits.com, you can get 20% off on your order when you use the code UpNorthJournal on checkout. So that would be kind of cool. But last but not least, hey, we're the holiday season. Man, I tell you what better way to go for Rebel 6 Rubs to have on anything. You were putting it on soup tonight, right?
Yeah, I put it in a little vegetable soup. Yep, we got that. So
yeah, so go over there on checkout, use North Journal, and you'll get 20% off as you check out there.
And also, just so we can show it again here, right there, right below my finger, that's the UNJ promo code for the Hunter's Blend coffee.
Because he's proud of that promo code.
That's right.
Bug.
It took me a while to make that. So
Whatever
we got to get a
that.
couple more made for the other folks.
Right.
So, all right, so without further ado, let's just get into it tonight, Danny.
Yeah, let's do it.
What do you want to talk about?
You know, well, it's kind of warm outside. No, let's start a week ago last Friday. Yes, Courtney, those ribs do look good in that picture. Let's go back to a week ago last Friday. You got up, you headed north, but you needed to make a mandatory stop for elk.
Yes, I did. I had to make a quick stop.
Actually, it wasn't quick. It was 2 hours.
Yeah, it was a good 2 hours. It was the orientation. And actually, my elk guide, and I want to give a quick shout out to the Pigeon River Country Elk Hunt Outfitters. That's where I got this cool looking hat at. And so now that I've got them with switch hats, because this Hunter's orange, I know it's bright on the screen right there. So.
Oh, it's pretty bright.
About as bright as my forehead right now. So
yeah, well, they both got that problem.
So we'll get our.
But yeah, you headed north, and you needed to hit a mandatory registration that was between 1 and 3. And anytime they have an elk season, you have to attend this to get your license.
Absolutely. Yep, you do. And they go through everything, what to do, what not to do, where to go, all that kind of good stuff. Tips, tactics, all that.
Exactly.
That good stuff.
And, they had how many licenses for this? This was the second hunt this year?
This is the second hunt. I believe there's 100 total for this hunt. I think 30 bulls and 70 cow tags.
Okay.
I think, or maybe it was 15. I can't remember.
Either way, there was 100 tags.
Yeah, there's 100 tags.
And you didn't get your license till 3 o'clock, so you had to stay.
You had to stay till the very end. You had to check in, then you had to check out.
So did they give you anything like what was your welcoming package? A glass.
Yeah. The DNR's Department of Natural Resources of Michigan 2019 elk hunter. That's and my license. That's what it got me, and some flagging tape.
Oh, see, there's some flagging tape. You got a flag with a number on it too, didn't you?
Yeah, you got a 100 number and a flag on it. It had 2 flags. Put one where you killed the elk and where the gut pile was. Put the other one out on the main road, and then you run flagging tape between the two.
All right, and so all the biologists were there.
Mm-hmm. Answering questions.
All excited. Get everybody excited to get out to the hunt because the hunt didn't open till the next morning.
Next morning, yep.
So you had that orientation. Anything that caught you off guard in the orientation that you said, wow, I didn't know that? Or
actually, there's a lot of stuff. I got a whole list of stuff written down here, but we'll save that for later in the end of the show. It's basically the history of how elk got into Michigan, how the elk got reintroduced into Michigan.
Yes.
Once they became depopulated out of the area.
Right. They airlifted them in.
Yeah. No.
No?
And now that was the moose drop, I do believe.
30 bulls is correct by Jennifer Drake.
Okay. See, Jen is an outfitter up there as well, and she's also part of Buck Baits.
Right.
So we had that connection going in and being able to. I got to pick her brain quite a bit and ask a lot of questions about certain areas of maybe where we might be able to get on some elk and be successful. So,
you know what I found out also is I came up Friday night, but I was really eager because I knew we were going to have Clif Bars to snack on while we were in for the week, right? Because you know Clif Bars are way better than Oreos.
That's right. I've been saying that, but when we're out there. I've been running with these all week, and no, we're not sponsored by these guys. But I tell you what, when it's cold and you need some energy, that's what we're running these protein bars in our packs, and you know what?
That's right.
It rocked, and actually, I started picking a little fight with somebody that uses something else, so that's the reason I did that.
Exactly. So that's why.
Oh, and he's on, by the way. Hey, Josh, how you doing? We'll send some Oreos your way, some Oreo flavored Clif Bars.
All right, so you got up there, you got your orientation, you got your license.
Yep.
So you're ready to go. You got your. You stayed at a little cabin.
Yeah, we stayed at Toasty's. Actually, I've got a little bit of video here from the place that we stayed at. Nice little cabins, $85 a night, very reasonable. 2 bedrooms, got a little kitchenette in them. Dan, what did you think about the place?
You know what? It was awesome. That I got up there. You had it all warmed up because you were there all day, anyways.
Right.
But it was right off the highway. It was really cool, and you just I can imagine that place in the summertime, as we did in the wintertime. But I think that's kind of actually easy access for an all year round place. And the cabin was clean.
Yep.
It was
nice and cozy.
It was solid. It wasn't no
drafty old cabin.
Sketchy.
Right. No, it was.
But no, I did like them,
really
and it was really good. I enjoyed it.
They make great hunting cabins if you had them on your property,
Oh, they would. And the interiors were, it had oil stove, you had electricity, you had water, knotty pine interior, if I remember right. And
beds were comfortable.
It was good.
The whole
really good.
yards.
Really great place.
Yeah. So we're gonna in our show notes tonight. If you're listening to the podcast, you go over and get those show notes if you're so inclined to want to check this place out.
And that is just south of, for anybody knowing Michigan, it is just south of the Mackinac Bridge by about
45 minutes.
45 minutes.
Yep.
So it's in Wolverine, Michigan.
Yep, exit 301.
Yes.
So there you go. But no, it was a real nice place to stay. It was centrally located to where we were hunting, a little bit to the east and a little bit to the north. So
exactly.
It all worked out pretty good.
Yeah, it did. And so you got a good night's sleep. We got a good night's sleep, and lo and behold, the alarm clock went off. Actually, you didn't sleep much.
No, first night I didn't sleep at all. And it wasn't because of the bed, and it wasn't because of nerves. It's just, I don't know, lately I haven't been sleeping well. But as the hunt went on, I actually started sleeping better, and that was due to all of the walking.
Right. come to find out, elk hunting in Michigan can be done basically one of two ways.
Yep.
You can either have like a field hunt, or you can have like a timber hunt. Is kind of what the two distinct ways of doing it. And you did some walking. I was with you when we did some walking. But that first morning when we got up there and we headed out, we headed out to public land.
Yeah, actually, most of the places I hunted, except for exception of one time, was all public land. I take that back. It was all public. Every bit of it was public land. Even the one I was thinking of was between two pieces of private. But yeah, I hunted entirely on public land the whole time.
Because some people have the misconception, and I know this because I was talking to somebody Thursday morning, matter of fact. They wanted to know how your hunt was going, so they called me. And he remembers it was a Fred Trost episode. Basically, the guy got an elk, they drove out, stood out there, shot it, and it was over.
Yeah.
And he was thinking, wow, man, that's like almost like a slam dunk kind of. And I kind of laughed. I said, no.
Well, some of that actually. Let me get off this picture and come back to us here real quick, because I do want to bring this up. There was an instance southeast of us in the big fields, and there was some confrontation going on. People would set up around these huge farm fields, and the people who were selling these hunts had access to these fields, and they were driving the elk with vehicles, which they got ticketed for. But a lot of that stuff went on, and it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. And I did not want to be any part of that style of
now
hunt.
the people that were hunting on the perimeter was hunting the public.
They were on public land,
and
some were hunting on the inside of it, and the people were driving the fields trying to keep the elk centrally located, so the people on the public didn't get a crack at them before their people on the private they sold hunts to did.
Because okay, so that's where I was going to go with your comment. Exactly that, because they were selling their hunts and making it was because of money.
It was because of money, yes.
And it was. I'm glad they got ticketed, because if you can't do it fair, and come to find out, just a couple of days that I spent with you learning how elk moved and why they don't move or do move or how they move, your outfitter was really basically hoofing it through the woods, trying to get you into the right position to know. And like he admitted, he said, hey, all my private land cameras are showing nothing.
Right.
So why hunt there?
Right. If the elk aren't there, don't hunt there.
Right. We got tracks right here. So we're going to hunt here.
Yep.
That works for me.
And really, the public land we were hunting wasn't really pressured. We didn't see but maybe a couple hunters.
And what one of the things I was worried about going into this was also it was muzzleloading season. So I didn't know if we were going to be running into Joe muzzleloader for deer or Joe elk hunter for elk. So, we started in that first morning into the trail, and lo and behold, we had some guy flashing his flashlight at us.
Right. Yeah. Now this is main road going in, and then after this, we broke off on a 2-track, which you can see I'm coming out of right there on with the Jeep. But the 2-track, I don't know, Dan. What would you say about the 2-track?
I tell you what, that could get really interesting in the summer if it got really muddy.
I've been caught in there before and almost didn't make it out.
Right, because there was about 4 spots that had some holes in them that you ain't taking a car.
Right.
And you better have some kind of vehicle to get through them. But luckily, when I was up there, it was cold enough. It was kind of it was not
semi-frozen.
Yeah,
yeah, you could get through pretty easy. I bottomed out quite a bit though.
Yeah, you did. And so we headed in, and tell you what, driving in at night as opposed to, or in the morning in the dark, as opposed to driving out in the day or vice versa.
Yeah.
What a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. First morning we got set up, there's a big elk rub right there on that tree to just left of center there. We spotted that right at daybreak where we were sitting. And we actually did a blind hunt. We carried a pop-up blind in and set on an opening just because we were running camera, and we decided it might be the best way to hide both of us. So that's kind of what we did. And that was kind of our location there. A little bit closer shot here. You can see.
And I thought it was, not knowing what it was I thought it was a decent spot. He had good openings.
Yeah.
We were
sitting on the off to the side of a planted field, rye field, and then with the tree line, you can see down straight out in front of us, way out there, is the beginning of a swamp, and it was pretty heavily tracked up.
Right.
So,
and like I said, when we first walked in, I was walking behind you guys because you guys were on the hunt, and we were walking in, and we had that guy Shyness. He was in the middle of the field, and lo and behold, one of the first things that I learned, as you did, is with elk hunting, you don't necessarily have to go in at the crack of dark.
Right. Yeah.
And he actually, he did say we probably went in too early.
Right.
And I was like, okay. I had to explain
Yep.
that you can catch them in the field as you mosey through.
And if you walk in and it's dark and you can't see them and you can't shoot because it's not shooting time, you're busting them out.
Right. And that was very interesting because, you typically with deer go in real early, let it calm down. Doesn't work that way for elk.
That's right. And, of course, I could not get this out of Danny's hand. He wanted to spray perfume all over the place. So we had the elk urine cow estrus with us.
And did it smell? I am not going to lie.
Yeah, it did have a nice little pungent odor to it. So, and once again, as we said, we rocked with our Clif Bars there. That with burning the calories of walking and trying to stay warm because it was pretty cold up there, especially the middle of the week. This is what I use out in the field with me on a continual basis, and it gets me through the day, and I love them.
It gives you that quick energy burst with some water, and you're good to go. And that's the thing. You sit there, and it wasn't too bad. It was Saturday. I think it was in the 30s, mid 30s, and it wasn't too bad.
Sunday morning was a little chilly, and then after that, it just tanked.
Yeah, I left the cold up there and came down here.
Well, I'll tell you what, that kind of gets us through the first day. We didn't see anything the first day. So
we saw tracks.
We learned
what tracks. We learned fresh tracks. We learned they're very social together. They walk in groups together, and their way they feed and how they walk a little bit, lay down, get up, feed, lay down is interesting. So it really was our first day, and we put a few miles on that day.
Absolutely. So I tell you what, let's step outside and take our first break. When we come back, we'll pick it right up with day 2 when Danny left, and we'll carry on the hunt. So we're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Second segment of the show. Hey, Rob Lee is on. How you doing over there, all the way over on the East Coast? Talking a little elk hunting tonight. Gary Johnson's on watching.
And Josh
as well.
Hagerman's asking, do people tree stand hunt for elk? And Jennifer said yes.
Yeah, I would probably be more in the early season. And actually, we're going to have Jennifer on probably after the first of the year. And I'm going to talk a little bit about her hunt. And Jen, let me know before we get to your part when we hunted or tried to hunt with you that one day. I did borrow a few pictures of yours from your successful hunt. And if you'd rather me not show them, I won't show them. So just hit me up here on the chat real quick. But we want to contrast the early season's early fall hunt versus that late season hunt.
That's what I was asking about too, because your outfitter was more than willing to answer any questions, and we didn't know.
Right.
It was like, well, so what's the difference between now and back in September, right?
Yeah, you got to ask a lot of questions, ask a ton of questions. But we got into day 1, really didn't see anything, got on a lot of tracks. Was day 1 when we actually did the spot and stalk when we cut a track?
Yes, day 1 was. So this is one of the things that happens. We finished up the morning hunt. We did a little walking in the area, found some tracks, found some fresh tracks, stuff like that. We're like, okay. So the outfitter says, hey, let's go to this other spot and we'll go look. We were over there and they actually saw some elk over at this other spot.
And we were on our way over to there.
And we come around the corner and all of a sudden, almost like every track, he stops in the road. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, here's where they crossed. They crossed and it's been about an hour. So he said, I give them about 400 or 500 yards. They should be in there.
Laying down.
Do you want to go after them? He being totally professional. He wasn't telling you. He was giving you options.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I always said, he'd say, what do you want to do? I say, well, what would you do?
Right? You did say that a lot. And so we decided that one, you said, you know what, let's go after him. Because it wasn't late.
It was around noon.
Yeah, so let's go after him. So we backed up the vehicles. Parked.
Best we could.
You know.
Didn't block the road.
Right. Lightened up our load.
Yep.
You know, stripped down a little bit because got a little sweaty walking. And we found the tracks and we started in.
Yep. And we got a little too close. On that one, he was just about, he turned around to me and he's like, okay, hold up just a second, and slowed us all down. And then he turned around and he took about 3 or 4 more steps and he was looking up. You could see him like looking around a tree, and all of a sudden you could see that look. He's like, oh, you could see him sink at that point I looked up and I seen, which was probably a herd of 15 to 20. I seen the last 3. And they were starting up the hill.
So that was the funny part about that whole thing was he was projecting an hour ahead of us, give him 400 yards. Well, they weren't even 200 yards.
Yeah, they're about 200, 250 away from us, and we got too close too quick.
Yeah, they made it actually to the first ridge, and that's where they stopped.
Yep.
Which was kind of, again, elk.
Yeah.
They crossed the road. They were on flat land, and the first ridge they hit, they were still at.
Yep.
So it's almost like they were bedded down there and just stopped. And here, you know, like you said, it caught him off guard. He wasn't expecting that quick.
Right. So that was first day. The end of the first day, we set in another field towards the end of the day. Didn't see anything there. Second day, though, we actually went in and we got lied to by another outfitter.
No.
Kind of suckered us. We were hunting in a series of 5 fields, you know, from the first being close to the parking area all the way to the back, which was about 2-mile stretch. And we'd seen him in the parking lot that morning, said he was going all the way to the back with his hunter. And in reality, he set up on field 2 and blocked us out. So
we could have been jerks.
Which is where we wanted to go. And I didn't want to bust through and ruin the guy's hunt. So we turned around. And actually, we set up halfway between field 1 and 2. And we got into some thick stuff and set the pop-up blind up again for Danny's last time setting with me. And this is a lot of fresh tracks in here. I mean, a ton of fresh tracks in this. And there's a swamp line probably 100 yards in front. And I had 3 shooting lanes that I could shoot down through into that swamp. And that's what we're trying to do, is just catch them coming through there and hopefully be able to get one. And if you can see here on this picture, on that birch tree there, right, just a little left of center, that was an elk rub. And this place was just full of them all over the place. So
yeah, it was kind of funny. The elk rubs were not low.
No, not at all.
Not your typical.
No.
But yeah, no, that was one of the things. This setup that you're showing there, and it was very tight quarters, and it would have been some. I wish we'd catch one coming through, because it would have been kind of fun trying to shoot through those lanes.
Yeah, it was tight, but you know,
it was fun.
We had a good time in there. Now that was pretty much the end of that day's hunt. Danny had to go home. So we pulled out, got him back to the cabin, and then got him packed up and sent him on his way. And you know, I was just like, let's just take the day, let's kind of regroup, get our thoughts together, get a plan together for the next morning. And then Danny took off to back home. So that was the end of day 2. And then day 3, to me, this was one of the coolest moments of the hunt for me. I don't know if it was the best, but it was pretty doggone good. So this is a clear-cut opening to the left and to the right, and it's a section that the state had just bought, 640 acres. And if you look just to the left of that last pine tree there, in the group there in the middle, we got in that morning, and all of a sudden I hear clack, 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 clack. And I look over at my guide's nephew, and I took and I kind of ran my hands together like this, like, you know, 2 antlers fighting.
Right.
And looked at him, you know, and he's like, yeah. And all of a sudden heard it again. And my guide's like, yep, they're right out there on that hill, you know. And when he was looking through binoculars, and then my binoculars were in my pack. So what I did was I grabbed my gun, kind of laid up against a tree, and looked out there, and I could see it in my scope. This is probably 400 or 500 yards away. Clack, 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 clack again.
And it was echoing through the valley?
It was echoing through the valley. They were slamming into each other. And I mean, they weren't like fighting, but they were having, you could tell they were playing. But it was loud. I'm like, man, I'm watching 2 bulls go at it. This is cool. And they were pretty good sized bulls, you know. And, you know, I think they might have caught a glimpse of us. I don't know. But they quit, and then they kind of meandered around and walked over that ridge that you can see there. And then all of a sudden, I'm still kind of looking through. I see movement. I put my rifle back up again. I lean up against a tree. I'm looking. Okay, here comes another one out. And he goes, is it a bull or a cow? And I said, I can't tell. It's in the shadows. And then I went, oh my gosh. He's like, what? I go, it's a bull, and it's huge. This thing was like what you see in the movies. It was
a Christmas tree, eh?
It was incredible. I couldn't count points. He was far away, but he was as far away as he was. You knew that was the boss.
So this is the funny part about this whole story is you just seen 3 bulls and no cows, and they shouldn't be in Bachelor, but I guess they were, unless these 3 got their butts kicked by somebody else.
Right.
That's the only thing I could think of.
Well, there was an old mature bull in that area. They said that it was past his prime and had been kicked out of the main herd. So he was a little too old to do his thing or to fight to be able to do his thing. And these other 2 younger bulls were with him, for whatever reason. But so what I did is we made a plan at that point. And I said, well, let me go to the right and go down and set in this valley. And this is the video here that I'm running. Sitting in this valley, the bulls were like right behind those pine trees about 400 yards from where I'm at, sitting here, as you see the video. And he was going to circle back around and get on those tracks and see if there's any cow tracks with him. And lo and behold, went through all that. After about an hour and a half, he come back to where I was at, and he's like, no, it's just the 3 bulls. That was it. So
really,
yeah. But it was a really cool experience to be able to hear it and see it. To say that, man, I got to see 2 bulls fighting and see one gigantic bull.
That's awesome.
So
Josh Hageman's asking how far do elk normally travel in a day, and that's really dependent. From what the outfitter I got out of him was, it's really dependent on pressure.
Yeah.
Sometimes they won't go far, and like Jennifer said earlier in the post, they usually like to bed near a food source. If they're not pressured by the food source, they won't go far and they'll bed down. If they're pressured, they will travel.
Yeah.
That's another outfitter was saying exactly that. You pressure them, they'll keep moving.
Yeah, they'll keep going.
And Rory says, hey, next time draw a bull tag.
Yeah, that's even easier to draw than the cow tag, right?
Right. and now that Mike has drawn one, he has to wait 10 years.
Yeah, I got to wait 10 years before I actually put back in for
a
draw.
Michigan elk.
Yeah, so.
But exactly. So you've seen 3 bulls in this area, which was really a new area that you were checking out and got to see 3 bulls.
Yeah.
That echoing, did that make the hair stand up on the back of your neck?
I've seen and heard bucks go at it.
Right.
Doesn't compare. Does not even compare. It to me it was incredible. That's the one thing I think, and I wish I'd had the camera. I almost took the camera with me that morning, but my guy was carrying my pack, and I didn't want to put extra weight on.
Right.
And I'm like, am I really going to sit and try to run a camera and get on if I had an opportunity and try to shoot? And I was like, no, I'm not going to screw this up.
No, you wait too long for something like that.
I could have got my cell phone out, but you couldn't have seen him with a cell phone. So,
and that's another interesting tidbit here. In Michigan, you get drawn. Mm-hmm. It's like hitting the lottery, basically. Well, we met another hunter on walking the trail that he had his buddy with him, and he was I put in one time and got drawn.
Yeah, and I've been putting in, I think, 22. I think it's 22 years.
Right, and his buddy goes, we won't talk about that.
Right, so it happens.
It is. It's a lotto. So, so you sat there, nothing, bulls only. What did you do next?
That day, I'm trying to remember. I think actually that might have been the day that I started text Jennifer and I started talking back and forth, trying to come up, and she was trying to help put together. Oh, and Jennifer says, the Pure Michigan hunt. I am putting in for that, by the way, next year, Jen. Because I am hooked now. That's the one thing somebody said is if you ever go elk hunting, you'll either hate it or you'll love it. And if you love it, forget buck hunting, for whitetail, because it'll totally ruin you. And this ruined me.
Well, you know what I see it as? And we hunted a late season. I guess I'd like to see how it works in the early season.
Yeah.
But it's a totally different style of hunting.
Yeah.
It's not it's not
whitetail hunting.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think it would ruin me. But it would just add to it,
Oh, yeah.
You focus on whitetails this way, but then you got to do a 180 to do elk.
Yeah. It's incredible. But that later that day, I think, like we said, we were trying to put a plan together, and I was talking with her. But later that evening, I went back and we set up on that field real close to where you and I had set up that first morning.
Oh yeah, yep.
It was cold. It was snowing. It was blowing. I think the temperature was 18 to 20 degrees, somewhere in there, and light was fading. And so we sat down in the field. I just fell down and plopped on a little knoll in the middle of the field overlooking that opening, that food source. and I laid in a snowbank. It was about 6 to 8 inches deep, and when I fell into it, I stayed put and did not move for like an hour, a little over an hour. And all I had on was my base layers, and I had my scent lock hoodie on, and my gloves, and my scent lock pants. I had my heavy pants on, but I froze. And I think when I got up, I had to shake snow off me. I mean, it was cold. Didn't see anything that evening, but that was the end of day 3. So, and then after that, the next morning, like I said, we were talking with Jennifer. She had a hunter that I actually met at orientation.
Oh, okay.
He sat right behind me, and we started talking, and I found out his guide was Jennifer Drake, and we started talking. I said, made the connection and everything. And then she said, well, I got him, we got him set up for in the morning. Why don't you come out with me, and you and your guide, and then once he shoots, she says, all those cows stand around usually in the bulls, and for a few minutes before they take off, and that way you can get a shot. So that's what we decided to do. So we get over there, and I always run through everything in my head, usually when I go on a hunt, and try to make sure I've got, you've got everything in your backpack, you've got, your ammo, you got your gun, yada, 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 and break it all down. We get over there, and she gets out into the field to go check to make sure that the elk are staged where they're supposed to be in this field, okay? And I'm sitting in the parking area with the hunter, and I'm like, just go through my stuff one more time. I'm going to say this, and you're going to say, how in the HE double hockey sticks did you do this? But I forgot my hunting license. So I'm sitting in the parking area, and I don't have my hunting license. The day before, after the evening of sitting out in the cold, I said, stop, got gas. I'd switched out of my clothes, got into my regular street clothes, and I carried my credit card with me in my hunting license pack because we were doing so much traveling and driving that I thought if we're out and I need gas because we're so far back in, I needed to keep my tank full. So I got gas, and what did I do? I stuck it back in my pants pocket. When I got back in the cabin that night, obviously I left my pants there. Next morning, put my hunting clothes on, and that's how I forgot it. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it happens, people. And, I always go through my mental checklist. That morning, before I left, I did not check. I was
kind of need your license.
Yep. So we ran back, and I made it back to my cabin and back to the parking area before shooting light. So then I had to stand and wait to go in until they shot because I didn't want to go in and bust.
Right.
She's like, well, let's try this. So, yeah, okay, that's the only shot I got now, so let's make the best of it.
Yep.
So I heard him shoot, and then I went in, and he took him a couple more shots to put him down, and by the time I actually got out there, the elk had moved out of the area, and that was that. So, but
how did he do? What did he score?
Well, this is the bull he shot. Nice 6x6, beautiful
Nice.
elk. And in the photo is Jen, his guide and our friend, and I would say co-worker with Buck Bates. Is that?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Are we workers?
We're workers. Yeah,
worker bees.
sure.
Okay, I don't know what we're called, but yeah, this is the bull that she put him on, and I mean, what a magnificent animal.
Once in a lifetime, right?
Yep. So yeah, this guy, obviously now he's taken his bull. So he's done in Michigan. I mean,
He's done for the life.
Once you draw a bull tag, you're done.
But can he get another one through the pure Michigan hunt?
Yes, you can still do that. Yeah.
So
yep.
But he's got, and like you said, he's got some nice back scratchers there, as they call them.
Right.
And Jennifer there put him on. How many was in that herd?
There was about 20, 25. Well, when they were coming out, I stood back and peeked like over a little rise, and I was watching after the first shot. When I heard all this going on, when I heard that first shot, then I started walking out, and I stopped and I watched it all unfold. And there was the bull he shot, which was by then was in the back. Then there was 5 bulls in front. Then there was a space and another group of 6 bulls, and then another space with about 5 or 6 other elk that I couldn't tell because they were so far away.
Really?
Yeah, and those were the cows, and I guess there was another group beyond them. So,
dang.
Yeah. So yeah, she was spot on. So
that's awesome. How far did he shoot? Do you know?
Over right at 400 yards or maybe a little
yards.
more. Yeah,
Wow.
Heck of a shot. So.
Reach out, and
touched him.
Touched him, eh?
Yep.
No doubt.
Yep.
Dang.
So, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like watching a movie. I mean, honestly, it was like I'm like looking over here at the bull, and then I'm looking at him, and bang, you're just back and forth, and all of a sudden, I watched them kind of meander off, and then, they said, come on down, and I walked down to where they were at, and I had got my binoculars up, and I'm watching as he goes over this rise and just kind of disappears, and they were getting ready to track. Actually, she was out looking for blood in the middle of the field and got on the track real quick, and at that point, it was like, okay, so what do we do now? Do we set up here, or do we, go with them and see if they're still with them? It was just, there's a lot going on at that point. So we backed out at that point, and we decided, let's let them take care of what they got to take care of.
Yeah, because after you shoot one, it's a production. Because like we said in the beginning, you had instructions of when you got your elk, what you needed to do.
Yeah, there's a whole series of things you got to do, calling the DNR and flagging everything, and going through that whole process. Then you got to take it in, get it checked in. They got to do an examination on it, and it's just a whole myriad of things. So at that point, I thought, well, let's just go ahead and we'll pull back out of the area because there's going to be a lot of commotion going on anyway. And then we went back over to the Pigeon River area where we were at. But this was up I don't know, north of Indian River. It was a big chunk of state land that was.
And just to finish that thought, there was 75 total in that group, with 25 bulls. Others were cows and juveniles, and he shot it at 409 yards.
409. Okay, so there's the tail of tape.
That's a poke.
That's a poke. That's a long poke.
Could you have done it with your gun?
My gun could have done it, but the cowboy behind the gun couldn't have done it.
Okay,
I could effectively. I was effective. I'd only practiced at 200.
I know you did. Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I was hitting at 200. I might have stepped it to 250, but beyond, I wouldn't have been comfortable taking a shot like that because I've never shot that far. The only range that we have here in this area that's got any distance is the club I belong to, and it's 200 yards. The next nearest one, I think,
is up towards
Reed City,
Lake City,
and then there's a public one in Alpena that's 600
yards.
Yeah. So, but I've never shot there. I would love to, but it's like when we talk archery. You shoot your effective range. Don't shoot past what you feel comfortable with taking game. And some of these guys are shooting like Denny Steiner shot an elk at 105 yards with a bow,
right?
Because he can.
Exactly.
That's
the whole point of when we talk and we talk to people when they're pulling off these what you would consider miraculous shots of 100 yards with a bow or 400. They've practiced. They're comfortable with them.
Yeah. We shoot 100 yards with our bow now. This last year, we've started doing a lot of target shooting. But would I take an animal at that? No. But we can shoot that far.
Right.
So, but yeah, I don't think I would have, 250 would have really probably been my max. So.
That's fair question.
But, I tell you what, let's take our break here, take our next break. We come back. I want to finish up day 4 because it was a pretty cool place where we wound up at the end of the day. So we're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Welcome back. Next segment of the show, third segment, sitting here talking about the end of day 4 on my little trip up north.
Little?
Yeah.
Little. It was a lifetime hunt.
It was. There's so many things that, like I said, that we need to throughout this winter. I'll remember something and bring it back up and talk about. But at the end of day 4, like I said, we went back over to the Pigeon River area and we walked. We decided, well, let's go back to field 5, all the way to the back, because my guide hadn't been back there in years, and he said, I'd like to kind of go back and refamiliarize myself with it. He said, let's go see what kind of tracks were. Let's see why that other guide blocked us on field 2. Because obviously there was something there.
Well, that's another thing we found out talking and listening and talking to other guides and how things work. You take everything with what anybody says with a grain of salt.
Yep.
And then you go from there. You go and find out your own conclusions because exactly what you're about to say.
Yep. So anyway, we got our feet going again, and we walked all the way back. And when we came out back to field 5, it opened up into a valley. This was just a really, really cool place for me. It was almost like a spiritual moment. It was just so pristine. And obviously, we don't have mountains here. We don't have the big, huge valleys like they do out west. But it kind of reminded me a little bit of when I was out west in Colorado back in '08. It kind of had that same feel for whatever reason. But we sat on a little knoll for about 2 hours, and we just kind of hung out and chilled out. And here's a shot looking down the valley, just to one side of it. And the Pigeon River was down in that bottom somewhere down that way.
The actual Pigeon River?
Yeah, we didn't get down into it all the way, but it was, you could tell just by the way the land was laying that that's kind of where it was. And here's a quick little video of
and
the
it
whole
was,
thing.
This was, which day was this?
This was day 4.
So it was a little chilly.
Yeah, this was right before the big storm moved in.
Okay.
Yeah, on day 5. What was really day 5. But, yeah, we sat up there until evening, and then we hiked it all the way back out. But it was just, we didn't see any elk here, but it really kind of looked like there'd be a lot of elk in there. And what I really enjoyed is, and I haven't really said a whole lot yet, that my guide is... Actually, we kind of grew up together. He actually lives down the road from me.
Right.
Our families grew up together, and like I said, his dad and my dad co-owned a piece of property together up north, and his dad still owns it. And that's where, close to the same area where I shot my first buck. But we sat up here on the hillside, and we talked, and we talked about hunting, we talked about life, we talked about just any and everything. And it was a real cool moment to be able to kind of catch back up again. And just, share a little bit of time up there on the hillside.
And what you did, you overlooking the valleys and everything of Michigan. That's you don't get a lot of time to do that, just to sit and basically hear nothing because it's so quiet.
Yeah, well, I was sitting there, and I was thinking, I'm sitting on that hillside, and I'm overlooking the valley, and looking at the pine thicket down below and the swamp area, and the wind's blowing, there's grass sitting there flickering, and I'm just kind of like watching this one little blade of grass do its thing, and I kind of got mesmerized for a minute, and I'm thinking, people don't ever take time to slow down and stop and look at just something so simple in life, just a blade of grass blowing in the wind and the snow, and all of a sudden 10, 15 minutes pass, and you're like, you don't get this back here in Flint, Michigan.
Some people
in the city
are afraid to slow down like that, which is kind of sad. They always got to be busy. They always got to be doing something. They always got to be going somewhere. You know what? Stop. In this case, stare at the grass, and especially up there, because there is nothing. There, you might hear a plane. You definitely not going to hear a car too often.
No, didn't hear any cars. Heard a bird. There was a bird. A couple birds flew around.
You might have.
That was it.
I heard a gunshot. Those were few and far between.
They were, yeah. I think we only heard about 6 or 7 the whole time we were up there.
Yeah, so, here you got Mother Nature at its finest in its winter setting, and you're overlooking this, and you're able to talk with basically a grown-up childhood friend, and reminisce, and man, that's awesome.
Living down the road, we talk, 3-4 times a year because busy. I'm working, traveling. Beep the horn, drive by, see him in the yard, mow in the yard. Same, he sees me, and that's really about it.
Right.
Because we're so busy. But we got to spend that time together, that couple hours just kind of catching up on things and talking about our dads and swapping stories and hunting philosophy and just life philosophy. It was really cool to be able to stop in the moment and sit back, decompress, watch nature, and just kind of catch up, be human instead of being in a rat race. And to me, that was what the trip to me kind of rejuvenated me. I was able to stop and breathe again. It's something we hadn't really talked about. We talked about all the walking, but I had 5 total hunt days because that was the end of day 4. Day 5, it was 9 below wind chill. I did not go out of the cabin that day at all. It was so cold. We had the storm blow through, dump 6-8 inches of snow on top of what was already there. And the wind was howling, and the elk weren't going to move, so we just hunkered down that day and stayed in. But I had 5 total hunt days, and I walked 32 miles. 32 miles and 5 hunt days. I lost 10 pounds, and I never would have believed I would have lost 10 pounds when I came back home that evening after I shaved. And she took my hair
9
off.
pounds of hair.
9 pounds of hair.
But you're right.
But I lost 10 pounds.
You sit there, and that was in a week. and you wouldn't even known it if your watch wasn't telling you it.
Yeah, I had it on, because we do the workout, and that's the other thing. Danny and I, we've been working out now 15 months. Had the last 2 or 3 months, I've just kicked it in high gear. I've really worked hard. I've done a lot of running. I've done a lot of treadmill walking as well, and I was really pushing hard. 2 weeks before the hunt, I pushed extremely hard that whole week. The week before the hunt, I backed off, did some light workouts, and
I tell you what, it makes a difference, and I'm going to agree with you because and it can be as simple as just walking the treadmill, but when you work out and you build that up, that walking in a mile and a half to set up the blind was no big deal.
Yeah, and carrying, that morning I carried the pop-up blind a little ways before my guide took it from me.
Right.
Had that on my shoulder, and I had my gun. My gun, it's 7 pounds plus, so carry 7 pound plus gun for 32 miles.
Well, and knowing how to dress right.
That was the other key.
That's a key factor in this whole thing, because you and I basically, we went out in our base layers.
Yeah,
we attached everything to our backpack, and it was boots and base layers.
I don't have my stuff still strapped to my backpack. My backpack's sitting over there, but I would actually take my pants, my scent lock pants, and my scent lock jacket and my scent lock hoodie, and I'd roll them and I'd strap them to the outside of my backpack. And then I had my scent lock base layers on. And I'm going to tell you, I'm pushing scent lock here, but I'm telling you what, you got to play scent control with these elk. When you're walking in the winter and you're walking miles, like our 5th hunt day, which was day 6 really, we walked 2.5 miles in to get to a spot. 2.5 miles.
Right.
And the snow was anywhere from 6 to 9 inches deep. Now, you do that in the dark and you got a time deadline. When you park, you've got to get from A to B, and you got to hoof it.
Right.
You don't want to sweat, but we did. I did break some sweat.
Absolutely.
Even in my base layers.
You end up having to be just sheer distance.
Yep.
Because you're motoring through 6 to 9 inches of snow is like walking in sand. It's like it's got that resistance.
Yep.
You're just not hopping and bounding through the woods.
Right. Yeah. And not only that, it's not all flat land. You're uphill, downhill, uneven terrain, and I'm telling you, if you guys are going to do something like this, make sure you put the time in to work out if you're going to do a walk-in style hunt or a timber hunt where you've got to put miles on to get to a place. Because the first day when we got in that night, I laid down in bed and my calves just twinged just a little bit. We put 5 miles on that day. I had a little flinch, and I'm like, okay, I'm probably getting dehydrated. Drank some water. I was fine for the rest of the hunt because I kept hydrated, drank a lot of Powerade, and drank water along with a lot of Hunter's Plain coffee. But
gotta get your liquids up.
That's right. Sure. But you got to keep your electrolytes up and keep your liquids in you to keep from getting dehydrated. The last day we were hiking out, the very last hunt that morning, and I was probably a quarter mile from the Jeep, and all of a sudden my calves started grabbing, and they weren't cramping, but it's like
you could feel them.
They were catching. Right? Yeah, they were starting to burn, and I'm like, yep, I'm waxed. So I made it through,
Right, and not for the working out, you'd have been in bad shape.
Yeah, I can't stress enough. You got to be prepared for something like this. But so getting back, we stayed inside for day 5, day 6. Which was our 5th hunt day. That morning, we knew we had a long walk. And, the night before, I kind of planned it out. When you don't have a coffee table, because the cabin was small, I improvised. I drug in my cooler, and I used my cooler top for...
It made a great table. I don't lie.
So had my map out there and got all my gear spread out, and we put a plan together for the next morning to get out and hit it hard. But it was up in that same area where I watched that gentleman take a bull with Jennifer. But our idea was, okay, because the way we came in that day and set up, it wasn't going to be able to make it happen, and we needed to come in around the backside and set up.
Okay.
Because I wanted to get to where I couldn't take a shot like he did, and it was really open. So what I want to do is get into a ditch line where Jennifer had told us we need to be, and there's a rock pile there. We need to get on this rock pile, and she said they'll cross within 100 yards of you. When they get done feeding, hits first light, they're going to come right across out of that section of corn, and they're going to come across that field, and they're going to cross that ditch line, go right back into the woods. So that's what our mark we were trying to hit was. And by the time we got daylight, we were at the edge of the woods, at the edge of the field. They had the ditch. And it's like, you can see here, Danny, I'm at the edge of the farrow field.
Right.
And about 400 yards in front of us there is the ditch line. And I was like, there's no way we can cross that opening. We got to stay here. So we stayed back by the woods. The day that gentleman shot his elk, when I watched him walk off that field, they were walking to the back corner, and that's where we set up.
Okay.
So 2.6 miles to be exact, is where we set up. And then at one point, I pushed it out a little bit, got up behind a fence post and posted up. And my guide was walking down through the tree line. He was going to walk down and see if he could see the elk over in that next field beyond the ditch. And needless to say, that whole morning, the elk weren't in there. They still hadn't got back there because of that previous cold morning, is what we figured, or cold day.
Okay.
They just figured they hadn't made the big circle to come back around and get back where they were. But we went and actually started walking or driving around. We drove all the way around this a couple big sections of land of state. And this little track here is the same track we walked on, but we were walking, like, I'm looking the direction that we were walking from, and that trail came across probably about 3 miles.
Okay.
So we walked probably 1.5 miles on that trail towards where I was standing. That open field right there, we could actually see at one point when we were transversing from one track to the other. So, I mean, it's a long way.
It's a lot.
And the elk would come back through this back section, circle around to go to another place where they were clearing, had a clear cut, and there was fresh treetops.
Ooh, dinner.
And we tried to set up in there too, but we couldn't get back there because they were working.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't. We tried twice to go in there, and the workers, they just had equipment in the way, and we couldn't get through. But yeah, we drove back around to this section and got back in there, and we walked it, and tried to see if we could see anything back there. Didn't see a lot of fresh tracks back there either. And it's just, I mean, you can see it's big land, big open spots. So after that evening, we was like, okay, well, where are we going to go? So, I said, well, let's go back over near where I shot my first buck.
Okay.
So, which is in the Green Timbers area over in the Pigeon. And this spot where we set up is on a cornfield planted by the state as well. And we sat there for the evening. And this is about 1 mile from where I shot my first buck.
There you go.
Back in 1982.
Talk about circle of hunting.
Yeah, and I did. I wanted to hunt down there at least one time, back in that area, just for old time's sake. So.
And there you did. You did.
So that was pretty cool. And here's Pick Me, just kind of hanging out, doing my thing, waiting for said elk to show up, but it did not make it around.
And that's why they call it hunting, right?
Yeah.
They don't tend to have their own. They have their own schedule.
Yeah. They don't call me and tell me where they're going to be, so to speak. But the last morning that we were there, I tell you what. Let's go ahead and take our last break. That way we can wrap the show up when we come back. We'll talk about the last day's hunt. So we're going to step outside, and we'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Last segment of the show, wrapping up on the last day of the hunt.
Last day of this past week's hunt for you.
And even going into the last hunt, I mean, I seen elk. I seen that herd we cut a track on. I seen the last 3 of that. I seen those 3 bulls, 2 of which were fighting. And then I watched that hunt with her hunter unfold. And I seen that big herd, the tail end of that herd, and seen elk.
Yeah, you saw them.
And they had days I didn't see any, and I was still very optimistic. Because I knew where we had to be. And one thing that we were conversing back and forth through was the Hunt Stand app. It's an app that I've got on my phone, and that's one she uses as well. They have a free version of this that I use. And what was nice is you say, okay, you need to go to here, and here's how you access to get to here. And screenshot it, sent it to me. I looked at it, pulled it up on my map, looked at it. Okay, here's how we get in. Here's where we're going to go. Here's where we're going to park, and here's where we got to get to. And here's the trails to go there. So that's that having that kind of info in your hand. It got to have a phone signal, obviously.
Well, yeah, that's another thing.
But it was a powerful tool to be able to communicate and then actually see where you needed to go and see that satellite image. So we knew we had to get to the ditch line. We had to get to where this rock pile was going to be. And we didn't get to it that second to last day. So we left a little bit earlier, got in there a little earlier, took a little different way to get in. It was faster, but it was a little bit harder because it was shorter distance, but snow.
Right.
So the trails weren't quite as good. But anyway, we got in there about 15 minutes before shooting light. I'm like, okay, we're good. Get into the ditch line. Like, okay, I think this is where it's at. This looks like there's some rocks here, a couple old tree stumps, and some other stuff. And I think this, it was a pile. Like, I think this is where it's at. Kind of look where we need to be. Sat down, got it all set up, waited for shooting light. Kind of waited. A half hour goes by, 45 minutes. Gets to be closer to 9 o'clock. And it's like, man, what happened? So my guy said, well, I'm going to get up. I'm going to walk out around the back edge of this ditch line. Because, weeds were a little bit tall. So
right.
You can kind of hide and get down by it. And he said, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to see if I can peek over and see if I can and get to that corn and see if that elk crossed over onto the private. Because we're right up against some private land. And he was checking it, getting ready to check it out. And he walked about 200 yards. And all of a sudden, my watch beeps. And I got it tied to my phone. And he's texting me. He's like, the elk are down here. I'm like, giggity.
Right?
Game on, let's go, So I'm like, this is going to happen. So I just get up, I leave my pack, I just grab my rifle, and I'm walking down through the ditch.
Right, absolutely.
And we get down there to where he's at, and all of a sudden he's right next to where this big pile of boulders was. It's where we were supposed to be.
Wrong. Okay,
we were at the
wrong pile of boulders.
Well, we were in it was kind of a, like I said, stump stuff, in the other one. It just wasn't the right spot. We should have been 200 yards down the ditch line. What we didn't know is looking, we're looking this way, and the ditch is, we're in it, so the ditch is run this way. If you look down, that field does a gradual climb, and then it rolls off.
Okay.
And there's a big dip, and then it comes back up. What those elk did is they came down through that low spot. We never seen them cross us.
Oh.
They crossed the ditch, and we didn't even know it. Had we been on them boulders, I'd have had about a 100-yard shot. So when he saw them, they'd already gotten through, and we're back by the tree line.
Okay.
So that was the end of the hunt.
Well, again, that's why they call it hunting, right?
I was just out of position just a little bit, so.
And they didn't stick to the plan. Well, they did, actually. They were by the if you would have been right rock pile.
It's hunting, but looking back, I wouldn't trade that hunt for anything. It was really, I wouldn't say life-changing, but it really invigorated me. It really challenged me. It left me with lasting memories. I got to see animals fairly up close. Before this hunt, I'd only seen 6 elk in my life. One being when I shot my first buck.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
That big bull was running with it right in that same area. And then a couple of years ago, I was up north with Jacob, my youngest boy. We were fishing before he went away to college, and we saw 5 that day, in the middle of the summer. Out milling around. But before that, I got an opportunity, and that's the one thing my guy, he kept saying, "Man, I'm sorry."
He did keep apologizing, but you kept saying,
all I look for in a hunt is an opportunity. When I buy my license, that's my opportunity.
Yep.
And the hunt is what the hunt is. It unfolds. And how many times do you hear people going out to Colorado on an elk hunt, and it takes them 5-6 trips before they ever connect?
Right.
It's
not a slam dunk.
No.
That's why I call it hunting. Right?
Yeah. It's
that's the whole point. Is they use the valley system that all the time there. And that's one thing. Okay, so here's one thing Jennifer's pointing out is one thing about having a good guide is exactly what Jennifer says.
Somebody that
it's
knows
important for the guide to do their scouting and know the herd.
Yep.
Right. So if you're going to use a guide, it's very important that the guide does their homework as well.
Right. And one thing we didn't know, the small local herd that we were going to hunt on private land, the land that my dad used to own with his dad.
Yep.
Those elk, there's like 6 of them there. There was a 1 bull and 5 cows. Well, what we didn't know, and we didn't find out until the morning of the last hunt, his dad found out and got a call and said, yeah, one of those cows was killed on I-75 last Friday. when I was, the night of my orientation,
okay.
somebody hit one. I mean, that land butts up right next to the freeway.
Right. Okay.
So one of them got killed, and it kind of, messed them up, and they got out of the area. Well, and they hadn't been back. There was one bull that was roaming around there by itself. Whether it was the same bull or not, I don't know. But the cows, they just weren't there.
Right.
They pushed out of the area because one of them got smacked.
Yep.
So,
ooh, man, imagine hitting one of those with a car.
No. No. But, there's just a lot of cool things. The walking, being able to do it, pushing through and persevering. And I guess that's the other thing, too, is when you've got a task ahead of you, like that day we had to push in over 2.5 miles one way, it was like you don't think about the endurance, you don't think about the distance, you think about, I got to get there. You've got something in front of you that's pushing you and driving you, and you put all that in the back, all that other stuff in the back of your mind. You don't think about it, and you just keep going. You don't stop. You just keep pushing.
Yep.
And pretty soon, you're there. It's
and plus you only have so many days.
Yeah, right.
It's not like you got a bow season,
right?
Or you've got a bow gunning. You got 7 days.
7 or 8 days, something like that. I think the season ended today, but I had to come back for work. I had to work last night.
So 8 days.
Or yesterday. I had to work all day yesterday,
okay.
so I had to get back home.
No, you had to get back, but that's it. You get 8 days.
Yeah.
You
got to make it happen.
Right? And we don't know if a lot of the hunters that were there weren't successful. Were they there all 8 days, or maybe they only had a few days? We don't know.
The one guy, when I was hunting green timbers, I talked to in the parking lot. I was actually talking to you on the phone.
Yeah.
And he come up and we started talking there at the truck in the parking area. And one thing I didn't know is he said, did you look at the map of the kills from last year? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of. And he said, did you notice there was only 3 cows killed in Unit F last year? I'm like, no. And that kind of shocked me. That was my unit.
Right.
So there was only 3 killed, which I thought was kind of odd. And then I got to thinking, I remember in orientation, they were talking, the DNR said, they planted more fields to the east because they're trying to draw the elk away from I-75. They're trying to draw that herd further east.
Right.
And get them away from over close to the freeway. So that's the reason that a lot of those fields that we were hunting those first couple days were planted in the early season. Like, I think somebody said one of them had buckwheat in it. There was no real forage, not a lot of forage there for winter feeding.
Right. They're by feeding, they're taking them east.
Yep. The way they're trying to feed them. So,
right.
And really you have no choice in what tag or unit you draw. It's just, there it is.
Yep.
So.
Well, it is what it is, but you got a chance to do it.
Yeah. And I tell you what, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I would love to go back up there and do more scouting and looking just for my own sake, in the years to come. And if one of my kids gets a tag, could I guide? I could get them up in the area and go, yeah, okay, this is how we found elk last time.
You'd have to spend some.
I'd spend a lot of time. I'm not saying I could guide. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying at least I have a small amount of knowledge to get my foot in the door, to be able to help somebody, and then get them in touch with somebody up there, like my guy Mike or Jennifer.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's the thing. You got your foot in the door. We both got. I wasn't hunting. I was with you, but just that little bit of knowledge that it's not like whitetail.
Mm-mm.
And you had a great place to stay at Toasty's, and I finally found out that a sturgeon can be thirsty.
Yeah, the thirsty sturgeon. That's the place where we eat a couple nights.
A
little bar and grill.
I didn't believe it, but we went there.
For those of you who don't know, a sturgeon is a fish that's here in Michigan. It's actually a prehistoric fish.
Right. And
it's basically a dinosaur.
It is a dinosaur, and they called it the place was called Thirsty Sturgeon.
Right on the Sturgeon River. Right? So, but I had a blast. It was a hunt of a lifetime for me. I don't feel slighted or cheated in any way. I feel like I had a great time, a great experience, learned a lot, and I pushed myself to the limit. And what more can you ask for out of a hunt than that?
If you weren't going to be successful, you got the full experience.
The one thing we didn't show, I want to show right now. So we got a cabin. You're hunting all these days, and you're like, well, how in the heck do you said you're walking and sweating. How do you keep your clothes clean?
Laundry.
This is how we do laundry. There's the little stove in front, the little black thing there in the distance, but there's the Oz by Scentlock. I'd fire that thing up, spread my clothes all out, and that's the way that we do laundry.
I tell you what, you do that.
It's an amazing little unit.
Or there's also the one you can use in your car.
Yep.
You can use that in the car, too.
Yep.
You can use all these because they're all portable.
Yep.
And, you just let that go for a little while. The one in the car, if you've got food smells or anything like that, or musty clothes smell, just plug it in and
fire it up and let it go and shut the doors.
A little while, it goes away.
Yep. So that's how I did laundry while I was up there. I think the keys, the big takeaways from this, Scout, know your guide. I think that's huge.
I think validating your guide is a huge one if you're going to use one.
Yep. And I knew the guy I chose to go with was I've known for my whole life. He's a little older than I am, but like I said, we all grew up and worked together. So, but know your guide. Do a lot of scouting. Get in shape before you go on your hunt.
And the thing about being in shape, Jennifer did mention about the early season, which is September. She said that one was hot and hard to hunt. So not only
scent control is even bigger there.
Plus the heat that your body works up heat and everything, being in shape and not running the risk of a heart attack.
Right. Taking water, consuming water.
Lots of water, because here you're at the other opposite end of the spectrum.
Yep.
Cold, but you're still sweating.
Yep.
But you got to keep in shape because you're still walking.
Yep. Use your our buck bait scent breaker we've got. We use that. Use your scent control clothing. You use scent blocker. I use scent lock.
Yeah.
An Oz machine to do the laundry. I think those are some key things that you really need to think through.
Absolutely. And that goes for any game animal that you're out after. But like Mike said, if you're going to do the guide thing, validate your guide. If you're going to do it on your own, even if you're going to have a guide, it's probably best do some scouting.
And another thing I'd say is with your guide, you got to trust your guide. You might think you know, but the guide on the ground who's got the boots on the ground and doing the scouting, you got to trust him. He says, we need to go, we need to break here, we need to go do this, or this is the spot we need to do, this is how we're going to trust your guide.
That's right.
There's
a reason.
There's a reason why. It wasn't with. It's just I've heard some horror stories.
Yep,
so
totally.
You got to trust your guide. So that's you got to be on the same page.
And now you're back here ready for Christmas.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for ATA, man. I want to go try out some new PSE bows.
We will be shortly. Matter of fact, this is our Christmas show, and next week is our end of year show.
That's right. So I think we're going to try to talk to Ken.
We're going to try to get Ken on. He got a doe. See what else I know he was out again muzzle loading, I think, last night.
Okay.
Yeah, today's Sunday, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Last night. So see if we can get him on. We'll get a wrap up for the year, and then we'll be off.
Looking for...
we're out of this decade.
That's right. This is the end of the decade. We got one more show this decade.
Yep.
That's hard to believe.
And then we're into the next decade.
That's right. Be season 14 for us.
Yes, it will be.
So, and for those of you on the podcast, we want to give a quick shout out to y'all too. Thank y'all. Have a Merry Christmas. Something that we haven't asked a lot of y'all to do before, but we want to start is if you guys, we know you listen to the show, you watch the live streams and everything, but give our Facebook page a follow or a like if you could. And our YouTube page as well. If you subscribe to YouTube, that way you get our videos over there. That would help us out tremendously. We got Twitter, Instagram, all of our social media. We'd like to see those numbers start to increase, and recommend us to a friend too if you could.
Share us.
Yeah,
Tell
share
us. A friend. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yep. Next week will be end of the year show.
All right, I tell you what, we're going to wrap up the podcast portion right now, but we'll stay on for the live stream for a few minutes here, answer some questions if you got some. So for those of you on the podcast, that'll do it for us this week, and may y'all have a very Merry Christmas. And don't forget, you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on GoodTalkRadio.com. This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Spot Shooters Archery,
Easy Cut,
Packer Max,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Scent Lock,
Scent Blocker,
Lim Walker Game Calls,
Buck Baits,
Gut Check,
Stanislavski Release Aids,
Copper John,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Sense Vapor Hunting Products,
and Rebel 6 Rubs.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe until next week on the Up North Journal.